Hi, I'm Deb Flaschenberg. I'm the founder and director here at the Prenatal Yoga Center. And what you're about to watch was originally taped for Periscope, 5 Ways to Have a Better Birth. And what you'll notice is it's interactive. So I'm answering questions, I'm saying hi to people, and I'm commenting on maybe how many hearts we have or how many people are joining us. So I just want to explain why there's some communication with the viewers and audience on this. So I hope you enjoy 5 tips for a better birth. Happy birthing. Namaste. And so what I thought I would talk today about is the 5 ways to have a better birth. So I'm also wanted to say, I'd love if you guys have questions, feel free to jump into those and ask them. And if I don't get them right away, Ursula's going to write them down. I also want to take just a moment before I get into the 5 ways to have a better birth, just to give a quick shout out. So one of our viewers, as well as students here at Prenatal Yoga Center, Yali, just had her baby, and she did end up having an induction, but I have to tell you, she was so well prepared and so confident in herself and her body and her baby. It just sounded like it was a wonderful birth. And what was really great is, so she practiced all these abdominals that we do in class, and she, for a first-time mom, she did a stellar job. She pushed her baby out in 10 minutes. That's pretty amazing for a first-time mom. You know, she practiced the ab work that we do. She was calm, she was quiet, she was centered. We did a lot about preparing the pelvis for optimal fetal position. So I just want to say a shout out for Yali and her new baby. So it's just so exciting to see everyone have these wonderful births. All right, so 5 ways to have a better birth. Let's jump right into that. So recently I've been talking about the importance of having a good care provider. So I don't mean good as in like they're a good obstetrician or a good midwife. I mean someone that really matches your philosophy. And this is something I've done a few periscopes on, as well as some of my blogs. And I think that what that means is that if you have an idea of how you want to have your birth, so say you're looking for a little bit more of a natural birth, you want to make sure your provider has that same philosophy. And vice versa, if you're someone that's saying, I really want this medically managed, and your care provider is perhaps like a midwife, they're not going to offer that kind of service. So just make sure that you're not having to negotiate what your philosophy is. There's a difference between making sure that medically you're sound, that, you know, if your baby is in distress, that there's attention to what that means. But I'm going beyond the medical necessity and the carefulness of watching you and your baby during your pregnancy and your birth, but to make sure that your philosophy of how you want to birth matches the way your care provider practices. The second thing I want to talk about is being physically prepared. So what do I mean by that? Now, obviously, as a prenatal yoga teacher, I obviously believe in prenatal yoga. So I think there needs to be a sense of, is the pelvis well aligned? So I was just talking about our wonderful student, Yali, who had a really fantastic birth. In class, we focus a lot about making sure the sacrum's aligned, making sure the uteral ligaments are aligned, making sure the pelvic ligaments are aligned. I'm seeing so many people pop up to join us. Hi, welcome. You know, to make sure that all of these things can help the baby be best aligned. So when the pelvis is aligned, the uterus is aligned, you know, the round ligaments, uterosacral ligaments, all those things can really help align the baby in optimal fetal position. What else do I mean by being physically prepared? In class we do a lot about abdominals, the transversus abdominals, and finding how to use those muscles. So by that I mean your transversus, they run around like a corset. And the way we practice in class is to find how to engage those muscles so that when the mom is pushing, she's not just holding her breath, tightening her face and shoulders and bearing down. She's trying to work with her body, with her baby, and use her abdominals to help push the baby down. So it's not so forceful. It's really the whole mom's body getting behind and really pushing her baby down. So in class, we focus a lot on preparing the abdominals, finding the strength of the abdominals. We also do that with the pelvic floor. So we do a lot of balance with the pelvic floor. So I don't often use the word Kegels because oftentimes when we think Kegels, we think just tightening. We don't want to just tighten the pelvic floor. We want to balance the pelvic floor. So I saw there's a question come up. Ursula's writing that down. I'll definitely get back to you. So when we think about the pelvic floor, we want to work on how can we engage as well as learn how to release. Love to pick your brain about help birthing with babies, parents. Oh, I missed that one. If you can repost that, I'll definitely answer that. All right, so sorry, back to the pelvic floor. So we want to have the sense that we can find strength to support the pelvis as well as the pelvic organs, as well as the release of the pelvic floor. So in class, we do a lot about finding that strength, because when the baby's head is emerging through the birth canal, it actually hits the pelvic floor and it helps it rotate to come out. And if it's really flaccid, it's hard to find that rotation, but yet if it's too tight, it's hard for the pelvic floor to open. So we want to have, I like to think of it kind of springy, like a trampoline. So we work with the mom during class to find the strength as well as the release. So not only are we getting physically prepared through pelvic alignment, we're finding abdominal tone, we're finding the balance of the pelvic floor. In class, we also focus on building stamina, because those have had either witnessed birth or have given birth know that you don't know how long it's going to take, and even if it's a short birth, it's really often physically intense. And so we want to have the mom have the physical as well as emotional stamina for that. Birthing tips for surrogate birthing when baby parents want to be involved. Okay, I'm going to definitely get back to that, so thank you for posting that. Ursula's writing that down. So again, back to the physical. Pelvic alignment, using the abdominals, pelvic floor support, building stamina. And then I just did a Periscope on this last week about the idea of open throat, open vagina. By that I mean, if the throat and jaw and tongue are relaxed, then the pelvic floor is going to be more relaxed. We're not going to engage the pelvic muscles. So I want to work on teaching the women how to be comfortable with opening their throat. And it's not big operatic sounds. It can be simple ha, or just open throat. So we're getting physically comfortable with opening the throat, relaxing the jaw to support and relax the pelvic floor muscles. I also want to work on the idea, that brings me to the idea of breathing. So when we're working physically and preparing physically, we're noticing when you're uncomfortable, how can the breath help ease that discomfort? So we work a lot on diaphragmatic breathing. We work on different pranayamas like Samavriti, which means even fluctuation, which means you're counting the inhale for 4 and exhaling for 4. Oh, someone said hi. Hello. Or maybe you're doing Viloma breathing, which is a 3-part breath. So finding how to incorporate the breath as a pain management tool is very important. And even if it's not yoga, so maybe you're someone that likes to swim or a cyclist. Again, I don't advise cycling too far into pregnancy, but if you're finding something that's physically challenging, how can you use your breath to help pass through that? So let's also talk about the idea of educating yourself. So I have a very solid saying that if you don't know you have choices, if you don't know your choices, you don't have choices. If you don't know your options, you don't have options. So it's really important to educate yourself. Take a childbirth education class. Continue to do your own studying and reading. Maybe you're doing some meetup groups that can really educate yourself about the birthing experience, so that when you're going into the birthing experience, you can get a sense of what your preferences are, as well as when things come up, maybe things deviate, you can be ready to adjust for that. So if maybe your care provider is saying, I want to induce you at 40 weeks and 1 day. You can say, okay, why? And then you can have that education, that knowledge, to have a conversation about it. You're not just taking your care provider's word as it. So you really can have a conversation about the best for your care. And again, it's not that you're trying to not have care, it's just you want to be involved in the care decisions. So far we have find a care provider that aligns with your philosophy of birth, being physically prepared, being educated about your decisions. And then let's talk about support. So getting the best support, that's number 4, getting the best support that you can. That might mean having a doula. That might mean just having your partner very well prepared. That might mean just simply having an extra set of hands. Perhaps it's a friend or a colleague or someone that you really believe can be a wonderful extra set of hands. So just kind of jumping into the whole doula thing for a moment. So having a labor support doula, what is that? Some people out there might not know what a doula is. A doula is hired by the parents or the couple or the mother, and she's there to offer informational, educational, and physical support. So having a little extra support can really make a difference. So especially if this is maybe the first child and the partner is a little nervous about really being in that role of offering support, having someone that already has that information can be extremely helpful. And then my 5th tip for having a better birth is to be emotionally prepared. So I think this is a part that a lot of people don't think. They think, okay, I'm going to take my childbirth ed class. I've hired the doula. I've been taking my prenatal classes. I've got the care provider. The emotional side is really huge. So what do I mean by that? I think it's really important to explore any fears you might have around your birth. So what does that mean? I learned this kind of the hard way with, I think it was my 5th birth that I attended as a doula. The mom was really freaked out, and I didn't even know to ask this question. And labor was long, and it was arduous, and there was a lot of emotional turmoil that came up with her. And it was a really challenging birth. And then a year after her birth, she called me, and she said, I'd love to come visit. I'd love for you to come visit. And I thought, okay. And so I went to visit, and I saw the baby, which was wonderful. You know, at a year at that point, wasn't a baby. And she said, you know, I really had to sit with this for a year and work through this, why the birth was so hard. And she said she didn't even realize it at this point, but she really, you know, when she was going into labor and pregnant, but she was very afraid to pass that threshold and really become a mother. She loved the idea of being pregnant. She loved the idea of being a mother, but the responsibility of such a change in her life really scared her. And she said by that, she thinks she almost held the baby in. She really didn't want to pass through the experience of labor and birth, because on the other side of that birth was the responsibility of motherhood. So I learned a tremendous amount from that challenge of that particular labor, of supporting that. And so from that point on, when I was working with couples or I worked with my students here, I asked them to say, you know, talk to your partner, really sit with yourself and dig deep and think, do I have any fears around the birth? I know from my 2nd birth, I had a lot of fear. My 1st birth was really long, and it was just challenging, and it kind of left me physically a wreck after. And I was really afraid that I would repeat that experience. So I dramatically changed things. You know, the whole way I prepared for my birth, my 2nd birth, everything changed. You know, I even did chiropractic to make sure everything's well aligned. But I really had to sit with and discuss and dig deep about what would happen if I faced that, you know, my big fear of repeating my 1st birth. And my midwife, you know, just said, so what would happen if it was like that? And I had to really think, and I really had to face that. And so I think by talking to my husband and talking to my doula and sitting with what would that mean if I repeated that, that helped me resolve and surrender to, I have to let the birth be what it's going to be. So I think it's really important to look at what are your fears behind labor and birth and motherhood. And if you say, oh, I have none, I ask you to sit a little deeper with that and really dig so that these fears don't come up in the middle of your birth. Oh, we got a hi from Italy. Hello. So yeah, explore your fears. I also want to talk about the idea of being emotionally prepared by building confidence. You know, so we talked about physically building stamina. You know, what can bring you confidence about your birth? Is it knowing that you have the care provider? Is it knowing that you're physically prepared? Is it knowing that you've educated yourself and that you've surrounded yourself with the best birth posse, your best team? Is it knowing that your body is meant to do this? Is it knowing that friends and family and thousands and millions of women have done this? So look at yourself, look deep and think, if I need to build confidence, where can I find that from? And then the last thing I want to pull in for the idea of emotionally prepared are relaxation techniques, you know, just continuously adding to your toolkit. So maybe your relaxation technique is a mantra, I'm okay, my baby's okay. I'm strong, my baby's strong. I am built to do this. I can breathe through this. You know, so just continually finding ways to build the confidence that you can birth this baby. So just to review, so the 5 tips. What are our 5 tips? Finding a care provider that matches your birth philosophy, being physically prepared, pelvis is well aligned, how to use your abs, balanced pelvic floor, building stamina, comfortable using your voice to express openness so that your body's open, conscious relaxation through discomfort and breathing. And then educating yourself. Again, if you're educated and you know your choices, you have choices. If you don't know your choices, you can't make educated, informed, empowered decisions. get good support. Who are the people you're inviting into your birth experience? Are they there to really rally, support emotionally, physically, and be there for you? And then emotionally prepare. Explore your fears. Build the confidence that you and your baby can go through this, and then find the techniques to help you relax into that. So I wanted to take a moment. We had a few questions. Tips for parents who want to help their surrogate. Okay, let's talk a little about this. I actually haven't had this question before, but I think this kind of goes back to if there's a surrogate, tips for the parents. I think, find that same thing. Help your baby mama there educate herself. So be there for her as she is going through this experience. Help her build the confidence. So remind her that her body is so very capable. Be the support for her. So educate yourself of how you can physically support, emotionally support her. Did she find a good care provider? Are you comfortable with her care provider so that she feels confident going through this? And then check in with her. Maybe she wants to take some yoga classes, or there's prenatal swimming. Again, help her be well prepared. So all these tips can be used whether you're the laboring mom or you're the support for the laboring mom. And just have an open discussion, open dialogue about how you can support one another. So we have a few more minutes until I have to jump off because we have class starting soon. So if there's any other questions, I'm really happy to answer those. You can also reach out to us at the studio if you don't want to put them on Periscope, deb@prenatalyogacenter.com. And then I'll also be doing, I often do 3 Periscopes a week. We often do Monday and Friday at this time at 9:15, and then Wednesday night after my kids have gone to sleep. Oh, we do have a question. All right, I'm ready for your question. Feel free to type it in. So yeah, the Wednesdays at 8:15 at night. You might sometimes, I think the last one you heard my daughter. Oops, I forgot my question. No worries. Feel free to, again, email it to me, and you can reach out to us on our Facebook page or on Twitter. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you again. And thanks for all the wonderful people joining. I saw all the hearts and the people jumping in to join. It's really a pleasure to talk with you this morning. Have a great day. Namaste.